Both of us? Ada's just a lass.
Father?
Don't worry, my love. They can't get in.
They think you're responsible for the creature.
Nonsense! I want rid of that beast as much as anyone. Slowing the whole operation down. These bumpkins should be thanking me. I'm the one who's paying for its destruction.
If you'd like to go tell them that, you're welcome. But please, let us get Ada out of here.
Ada doesn't leave my side, and I'm not going anywhere with you.
You must listen to me. In a few minutes, one of those bumpkins are going to work out that this building is made of wood and they'll set this place ablaze.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Dave, and this time on the podcast, we are very, very fortunate because this is actually an episode that I've been looking forward to recording for a very, very long time. And if you're a fan of the podcast, you'll kind of have met some of these characters before. In fact, all of the characters before in our stories. They were a huge part of Ifan's death. But we're going to focus on the nation as a whole, which is the Brasscoast. Who wants to introduce themselves first? Greta, Cicci, Ben, who's up for it? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, way to step up, man. So who are you? What do you do at Empire? That sort of thing.
So my name's Ben, and at the Empire I play Edgardo Roba Iguera, and I was most notably known for being the second admiral the Empire ever had. And likely, there probably won't be a third for a very long time after that whole debacle. I am also part of the Promiscuous Dodos, which is the group that we have formed.
Okay, cool.
And you and your audience may have indeed seen some of our work.
They are.
I know you
on
have,
this
obviously.
podcast anyway. The stuff of legend. They are. If you don't know, they do a few plays. Noticeably, the Coctopus, which I'm a personal massive fan of. It's true art. But let's get through the introductions before I start really laying it on too thick about how much I appreciate what you do. Cicci, why don't you go next?
I'm Cicci. I play Ana Itazil Iriqueza. I love Empire. It's fabulous, and I love the sort of things you can do with it. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. Finally, Greta, you're up.
My name's Greta. I play Ileana Itazil Iriqueza. I am the costume maker for a lot of our theatrical productions. And an apothecary. I guess that's all my character really does. Yeah.
That's all they do. We all diminish our own roles at Empire, but that is I would say a massive one. Right, let's start with just nation questions before we get into what you do specifically. First of all, like, what kind of attracted you to the Brasscoast? And like when your first maybe impressions of the nation, and were they kind of any differences when you actually started playing?
So I really love the costume brief. It is so vibrant and colourful and different to a lot of the sort of standard medieval style LARP. And one of the favourite things for me about the nation is the honesty, because a lot of LARP is about pulling, something over on someone else, or being disingenuous, but actually the Brasscoast brief is all about honesty, being loud and proud with what you believe in, and that's really cool.
Yeah, very much so. I completely agree. It's one of the things that I really love about interacting with Freeborn. That's one thing that we should do right now, which is something I can be involved in. Brasscoast is the nation, but Freeborn is what you call them as people, and I'm still learning this because I still call them Brasscoasters, and it's like no one from the Brasscoast is cool with me calling them that. So I'm really trying hard at the moment to try and change my language and try and do it properly. So hey, it's work in progress. But yeah, Ben, is there anything that you want to add to that maybe?
Yeah, it was just that. Yeah, for me, so Empire was actually my first ever LARP. I'd done no LARPing before then. I'd done like LARP adjacent things, but I hadn't done LARP. And when I was looking at the nation list with my then girlfriend, now wife, we were looking at what nations, because it was her first time lapping as well. It was like, what nations should we join? And we were looking at like Navarre and Varushka, and there was just a bunch of them and they're perfectly fine for people that want to play that, but like they weren't grabbing me.
Yeah.
I was seeing the costume briefs, and I was like, and then I saw the Brasscoast, and I was like, oh wow, like shit, this is so colorful. They're like, that was literally it. It was just the color palette initially grabbed me, and then I started reading more into it, and I was like, because it was my first time LARPing, I thought it'd be really good to find a nation that just sort of gelled with me personally, because I don't know, at the time I didn't know how to play a character in real life. Like I've done it in D&D, but not in real life. How can I sustain that for like entire weekends?
Right.
And then as Cicci said, like the whole honesty thing, I myself am a very honest person. I find it hard to lie. So all these like cultural things that fit within the nation fit within my own personal things. So it enabled me to be able to go there and not have to roleplay as much. I basically was playing myself, and then over time the roleplay sort of like as I got comfy sort of became more a part.
Yeah, I think this is kind of interesting, like doing these episodes specifically with different people from the different nations. It really feels like different personality types are just drawn to nations specifically. Like I don't think that's true 100%, but I think that can be applied to huge numbers of players, like in the field, and it's kind of cool to see, and it kind of implies that you're going to kind of meet more like-minded people when you get to the field anyway, because they're going to enjoy the same things you are, i.e., dressing up in these fabulous, like Greta. Let's get into some costume. How would you describe the aesthetics of a Freeborn? I was about to say Brasscoast, and I didn't say it, so
Well done.
yeah, thank you.
Good on you.
Yeah.
How would I describe the aesthetic?
Yeah, like and fashion choices and how you approach it.
How I approach it, or how the nation approaches it? I guess
Let's start with how the nation approaches it, and then we'll kind of work into our individual kits. Maybe. How does that sound?
I think it's quite accessible in that you can put together an outfit quite easily just with charity shop finds or buying secondhand things on eBay and that kind of thing. You don't need like a high-end reenactor's level of kit to get your foot in the door. Concerning my own kit, obviously I've used the longest dark to kind of revamp it and make a whole new set, which is moving away from that and going more in a fantasy direction, I guess. More medieval Persian inspired and like 1001 Nights and that kind of thing, rather than contemporary Asian clothing.
Yeah, and how do you guys feel about the brief? It's very colorful, right? And it's very flowy and kind of like you said, there's a Persian influences, but then it also feels like, I don't know, like
North African, and
like Berber, sort of like that Spanish Moors type vibe. I think I read that somewhere. That's an old memory right there, but that sort of like cool, flowing, colorful, bright stuff,
Definitely, it's really interesting because getting the authentic sort of medieval Moorish outfits can be a bit difficult, but luckily there's a lot of fabrics around that has that sort of rich flowy feel, so you can use that to make your costume a bit more easily. But the original brief is very much Persian, North African, Moorish, lots of flowing robes. People tend to go, it's like, oh, how do you play Brasscoast in the winter? It all looks so flowy and light. It's like, no, you have layers. It's brilliant. And you can hide thermals under all of that very easily.
Yeah, especially because a lot of thermals come super colourful. So no one can really tell what they are if they see you at a distance. But also, as Cicci said, you've got so many other layers and robes and scarves and whatnot covering you that like you're not going to see that anyway.
Don't forget the sashes.
Sashes everywhere.
So many sashes.
I think for me, I think I try and do, like, it wasn't necessarily at the beginning because I was a bit more like uninformed and stuff, but like what I try and do now is steer. Personally, I try and steer a little bit away from just like going and getting like contemporary cultural clothing and putting that on, because I'm a bit more wary of that now. So I try to, as Greta was saying, I try to aim more at like a fantasy style, or like a style of clothing that isn't contemporary. Like it was around 500 years ago.
Could you maybe give an example of that, just so I can kind of get my head around what you mean by the difference between the two?
Sure. So some people will by say a male or female Indian wedding garb,
like a sari type
and
thing.
that's technically supported in the brief. But my own personal feelings around it, I'm a bit more like I kind of want to steer away from that personally
Sure.
because that's like an actual item still that people still use. So I try and there's ways you can make the costume look on brief and still be quite ambiguous about like its whole, it's inspired by, but it's not actually using items that are still like significant to a contemporary culture, if that makes sense.
So you're more taking like styles of fabric and maybe how they're kind of put together rather than the actual items themselves, right? So turning them up a little bit. Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, I think it is quite for those that haven't been lucky enough to go to Anvil yet, it is quite the sight when you arrive in the Brasscoast and seeing all the different people's colours and that's a good question. What sort of colours palette are we kind of looking at within the Brasscoast?
If it clashes, it's good.
I would argue that complementary colors are better than clashing. You can,
I know, but I just like to say that.
You can do it tastefully. But yes, that is the common opinion.
The most common colors are the colors of flame. So yellow, orange, red, with a hint of blue and purple. So if you can think of it as a flame, those are very much supported in the brief. But there's
Cicci,
as long as it's
that's
colourful.
excellent. That's such a good description of how they look on the field. Are like flames, and especially when like there are performers or anything else. Yeah, I think that's a really great way to think. Is there anything about the Brasscoast that kind of changed when you got to play? Like, is there anything that you saw in the brief and then when you've been playing, or how it's developed over the years, has maybe changed some of your expectation about the nation?
I guess going in, there was initially, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, Cicci, but initially there was meant to be like the three tribes, Guerra, Rayquaza, Irego, which I always can never say. They technically have a little bit of a rivalry, or at least they were meant to be kind of more standoffish with each other. And I found that never really happens in the field. It could be because Brasscoast is still quite a small nation. But I also feel like, coming back to a point you said earlier about how it attracts like-minded people, that is definitely the case. And what I find is in the Brasscoast especially, a lot of people are not very confrontational. So it almost seems to be a little bit rude to sort of be like, no, I don't deal with Rayquazas. Like it just didn't.
What do you know what the difference is between the three different groups are? Because I know obviously like Wintermark has their Free People, One Nation. Is it a similar vibe to that? Like I don't really know much about. Sorry if you're listening to this. I'm very ignorant on the culture. I just give a lot of Brasscoast people money basically. So
the best way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the tribes on site like you would with Wintermark. So there's no like separate costume brief or anything like that.
I think there's meant to be some slightly cultural differences. Like I believe the Rayquazas are more into. Oh, I'm gonna get this wrong because I myself just don't bother really keeping up with that. But was it like the other ones? Is it Guerra who are really into fire? Like if they do performances, they'll use fire, or is that Rayquaza? One of them uses drums, the other uses fire. Arigio, I can't remember what they do, but that's like there's some small
it's quite telling that you're struggling to pin it down. To be honest with you, it says a lot that's because I think one of the things that is kind of intimidating for a lot of new players when they read a brief like that they don't want to kind of do the wrong thing or step into something. But it sounds as though in the among the Freeborn, it seems pretty relaxed. Like you can ask and learn while you're on the field, right, rather than making a fashion faux pas.
There's no fashion difference, really.
No. So the three tribes are descended from three different sisters. So they're still sisters, and so we're all family in a way. So you might have arguments within your family, but they're still family.
Just call everyone cousin.
If you
right,
you can absolutely avoid them if you don't really like them.
Because
there's also a lot of fun ways that you can tell someone you don't like them without saying to them, "I don't like you." The most famous way, and the way that's preferred, is like if they come to your campfire and they're like, "Oh, how many rings to sit by your fire?" Usually the price is like 1, 2, whatever, like rings. But then you could be like 50 thrones.
Hold on, you charge people to sit by your fires?
Oh yeah. charge
great.
people for everything. Everything's a service.
Like, everything is a service.
Everything has a value, and it is much better not to get involved in, being obliged to anyone. So we just state our value up front. And if we like someone, it's very cheap to sit at a fire. And if we don't like them, it becomes very expensive. And it's a way to be polite, You don't have to tell anyone to go away. You just name an outrageously high price, and they know they're not welcome right now.
Yeah. So Freeborn are quite blunt, and we don't like ambiguity. So that's also why we basically, if we can make a contract over something, we're gonna make a contract over it. Because we just like to know what the terms are. We like to make sure everyone's upfront with what they're propositioning, and everyone's happy with the deal as well. There's no trying to cheat people out of like a good deal or whatever, a good price. Like, this whole thing is like, right, both parties or however many parties, we're all good with this, we're all happy with this, sweet. Yeah, and as Cicci says, everything has a price.
I think as a player, like I'm a Navari player, when I first started interacting with the Brasscoast, I assumed that I would have to haggle, and it would be like, like I would have to, there was always, you're trying to get like the best price, and it's not that way at all. Like, I think that's a very accurate description that you made, is like, I'm literally going to tell you how much this is, and if that isn't the right price for you, then that isn't the right price. And I think that was pretty cool. Like especially like, okay, I'm just gonna go, okay, dear listener, I'm just gonna indulge myself real fast. I'm gonna go into all the theater stuff and if and death and all that stuff now. We're going to get back to brass stuff later, I promise, but like I can't hold it in anymore, and I just need to talk about it. So basically, my old character Ifan was a real arsehole, son of a bitch, warrior type, okay? And he had heard about this play called The Coctopus and had caught glimpses of them performing this and had become like enamored by the idea that you could hire somebody to perform a play for you, and that how amazing that was. And 100% this is a lot of OC Dave in this as well, because what a concept, right? Like, to go to an event and actually hire people and have them perform for you for in-coin cash is fucking amazing. It's so cool. So to cut a long story short, I had managed to arrange a performance with you guys, and it was a very reasonable price, by the way, because I had first heard that it was going to be like free thrones to hire you, right? And I was like, oh, I'm never gonna see free thrones, but I want it, right? Like, I wanted to rob banks to try and get free thrones together to try and get enough money. Like, I was like, how can I get rich? And then it came down to like, oh no, I think it was 3 crowns or something, plus some more for some drinks or something. And I was like, I couldn't get rid of my cash fast enough to hire you guys. And then unfortunately, I'd arranged the performance for the Saturday afternoon and hadn't told anyone, because I was going to keep it a big secret and then surprise everyone by going, why don't we just go walking down the Brasscoast? And then I had this elaborate thing set up, and then we're going to have a great time there. Unfortunately, I died during the battle and was critical. I had to come back and be like, everyone's like, oh no, Ifan, no. I was like, oh, one more thing. Before I die, you must carry me to the Brasscoast. And maybe you guys as a group can kind of collectively describe how what that is like to witness one of your performances. Like,
oh, crikey. I don't know. I've never witnessed them.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I'll tell you right now, like, from the audience point of view, it's a lot, Who's the writer? Who comes up with these?
It's a group effort.
Yeah, it's definitely a group effort. We just, someone has an outlandish idea and goes, can we do this? And then it goes from there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we tend to send, like, if we're workshopping a new play or whatever, we'll tend to sit around our fire in the afternoon and just sort of like spitball ideas. Basically, we go, right, how many innuendos, like how many cocks can we get into this one part? And, like what other shenanigans can we get up to at this part? And then we kind of cobble it together, and then we literally all take it out on the field that night.
How many cocks can we fit in this story? I mean, And
I love
to
it.
be fair, that is
always answering that question with more.
a lot of cocks in a story is how many you can fit in a story, because my word, like the coctopus is, if Anne died with his face in a multi-penis tentacled creature waggling in his face, what a way to go. What a way to go. Like, Greta, I assume that you're the one responsible for that creation?
Monstrosity. It's known as.
I had a hand in it, but I did not actually make the coctopus. I got to give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a member who's no longer in the group.
Okay, but yeah, it is. And what's cool about something like the coctopus is that you're gonna get like use out of that in a whole bunch of different systems, right? Like when don't you need a coctopus, right? Like, yeah.
He's only ever traveled to one other system so far, but you know.
Was he put to
Hopefully
good
hasn't.
use?
Yeah.
The terrifying hellspawn that comes out the water.
Yeah, I think the we shouldn't talk too much plot, because honestly I didn't know the full plot, and really enjoyed the whole thing when I went to see it, so I think that's definitely open.
I think there's without getting the plot away, without getting spoilers, I think there is a moment to go back to your question about what's it like to be, to witness your performances. I guess the best I can, because I'm usually the narrator, so I get to keep a real close eye on the audience, because we like audience participation. If you're listeners,
and you're like
witness our play, make sure you interact, because that's when it gets fun.
You're almost like a straight man, right? Like you're kind of like telling this story kind of straight, and this craziness is happening next to you, and like there's lots of people pinging off each other and audience interaction, and like dare I say, Shakespearean, right? Like that's, you know what I mean? Like that kind of like, it's a lot of cocks and a lot of backwards and forwards. So yeah.
Well, I think one of our original goals, like when we invented the Coctopus and would decide to take it on tour, was to kind of outdo the league's performers, because obviously their whole thing is dramaturge, and we're like, we're going to show them dramaturge. And we did.
Yeah, I mean, with bells on. Quite literally with bells on, actually, isn't it? It literally is with bells. No bells?
Oh, no. Like, a lot of us do wear bells.
Yeah.
The Coctopus itself has one bell.
Yeah, I remember the jangling. It still stays with me now. Like, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night sweating, and there's that still bell ringing. But the bell ringing?
I think there's a specific moment during that performance where the beast is introduced, and you can tell who's never seen the play before, because their eyes go huge, their mouth drops open, and they're just like, "Oh my god, what?"
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite story to tell of this kind of situation was the first night we toured it. We went to the the PD run tavern, so the big wooden structure, and we're walking in there, and I'm like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do a performance, blah blah blah." And I saw this 6-year-old kid. I can't remember how old he was. He was a young kid.
Oh god.
And I went up to the parent. This is 2 in the morning. But I went to the parents, just so you're aware, the play we're about to do is pretty blue.
Yeah.
And they're like, "It's fine. He's seen it all before." I'm like, "That's concerning, but all right."
Yeah, I'm not here to judge your parenting.
Not something. Yeah. This is probably not something he's seen before. They're like, "Look, it's fine. He can see it. It's not a problem. Shut up." Like, all right. So we do the play. The beast comes out, and literally the parents' face, their jaw hits the floor, and they're like, "Fuck!" Grab the child, throw their hands over his eyes, and get out.
I have very little sympathy for parents that take their kids to an anvil bar after even 10 o'clock. I mean, there are some savages out there, and once you add alcohol to that, Jesus.
I'd say it was earlier than that. It was definitely still time in, and I'm not sure how much they were playing up.
Yeah,
they could have been hamming it up about how terrible.
I would say it's very good natured.
Certainly had no complaints.
Yeah, it's certainly good natured, right? It's totally a lot of fun.
It's a very virtuous play.
It's the most virtuous play.
How would you justify it being a virtuous play?
It's all about the virtues.
Yeah, literally. It's extolling them.
We're not going to spoil it, but it is all about the virtues.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, yeah. I'm not gonna. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Yeah, it's really good. Is there any other plays that
come see it yourself?
There are other plays you do as well, beside the Coctus, right? It isn't just one play. You've got a bunch, right? Haven't you?
We have
Yeah.
a whole repertoire.
Yeah, and it's growing. Like a fearsome beast in the night. It's growing larger
Yeah.
and larger.
Firmer,
as it goes.
stronger, and pointing out, like, yeah.
We even have
we
a
have-
musical.
We have a musical, yeah.
What's it called?
2 musicals. The Dildodo is also a musical.
Oh yes, I
Oh,
forgot about
of
the
course.
Dildodo.
Yeah.
The Dildodo, of course. Yeah.
Classic.
The main musical is Has Anyone Seen My Cock?
I've seen that. It's very good. You really couldn't find it, could you? And then it's a very elaborate story to try and find that cock again. So, yeah. How can people, if they wanted to come and enjoy these plays, maybe come and find you? How does that work?
They
Pay
come
us.
to the camp and they make a contract to have the play performed.
Yeah. Let's talk a little.
Contracts
Let's
are very important.
Yeah, let's go into contracts and how you RP that on the field. Like, how do you and like you were saying before, it does apply to everything, right? Like, I actually went to a player event recently with a lovely lady who her book was just so meticulously maintained, and like everything went in the book, and it was. I was just sat there watching it, and it's very cool RP, right? Who wants to go into how you would approach a business deal?
I think
Greta, you've been our dumb mirror a couple times. Why don't you go and answer this one? What's your favourite?
This is why I always delegate that to other people.
she does do the most beautiful contracts, though. If you ever want a really, really beautiful contract made, Greta is the person.
Yeah, Greta, come on. Tell us your secrets.
Have I made a beautiful contract?
Like, really early on.
Oh yes, you did, because
I
you were
don't
the scrivener,
remember.
weren't you? Very
Oh, I
early on.
tried scrivening because I enjoy scroll making in real life, but then I found that it's a real pain on the field and ceased doing it completely after like 2 events.
Yeah. So some
yeah.
people, it's like their whole game. It's like they want to, and they'll play like a Cambion because Cambions in the system are like in Freeborn culture are special, and like we consider their blood to be lucky, so we often like will get them to sign it in blood or like put a Cambion thumbprint on this contract.
Oh, that's awesome.
I digress.
No, that is an excellent
Like,
digression.
no, that's cool. So a lot of them will play as Cambions because they want to be a scrivener, and that's great because I can't be asked to write that much. It's my weekend, it's my holiday. I don't want to write anything, so I'll just pay a Cambion to come and scriven for me if I need a contract, like a proper sealed, done deal kind of contract.
I cheat as well. I have pre-printed contracts with all of the basic details, so I just have to fill in a few things. Or I have a very large family. Family is very important in Brasscoast, especially because you can delegate such things as writing out the contracts.
I think
when I negotiate them with people.
I think there's something to be said about the having your name being put physically down on a prop. That actually is a really cool piece of RP that kind of makes things a lot more like it's distinct to the nation, but there's also something cool about the process, right? Like it's not just you got any crystal mana. Yeah, how much you want for it? Boom, and then you just swap coin and leave. There's a bit more kind of theatrical nature to it, you know. It's I really dig that.
It gives people an excuse to come after you if you mess them over, which especially as Freeborn, you really shouldn't. But like it has happened where there was one battle where one of the generals, like I was the admiral at the time, one of the generals had made a deal with some mercenary guild, and then I think he was preoccupied when it came to payment. So, he came over and like they came to find me because they knew I was like part of the like hierarchy of like whatever. And they were like, "Where's our money?" And I was like, "I don't bloody know." Like, what are you talking about? And they explained the situation, and I was like, "Oh, look, you're after that guy. He's over there. Go and talk to him. Go and beat him up. I'm nothing to do with this. I didn't sign this." And then they were going to, because again, Freeborn, they trust you. They're like, "Okay, he wouldn't lie. Let's go." And but then they remembered what day it is, and I'm sure we'll get onto this topic as well at some point. But it just so happened to be our festival, so it was the last event of the year, and that's when the Brasscoast have their special festival, which is called the Broken Wheel, and it's the only time where you can lie, because it's all about expunging the virtues and whatnot, and like, living a kind of
What?
hedonistic life for an evening.
Hold on,
And
you
so
can
they realised we
so
were
that
just about to go on to that.
slow down,
And
slow
so
down,
they're like,
slow
wait
down.
a minute,
Ben,
he can lie.
Ben, you can lie over the whole weekend. It isn't just one day. Which
No. It's one afternoon. It's the Saturday afternoon. And
Evening.
it's
It's
just
from
evening. Sorry,
sundown.
yes,
Yeah.
after sundown, evening.
Okay.
After sundown. And so they cottoned on that it was literally about to be sundown, and they're like, "Wait, this is the one time this guy can lie." And then they were like, "Gonna try and beat me up," and I was like, "Shit!" Like, I promise you, I'm not lying just yet. It's not quite sundown.
I love the idea.
Go to that guy, please.
I love the idea of
And you
you
don't
not
have to
swearing
lie.
all year round, and then you try and do it once, and then it goes horribly wrong for you. The only time of the year you get to lie.
You don't have to lie. It is the Broken Wheel is a festival about exploring the virtues, because how can you be virtuous if you don't know what it is to be unvirtuous? So it is a time to explore things that you wouldn't necessarily other time be able to do.
Interesting.
It's great fun.
Interesting. So it's like, are there any real world festivals that are like that? That seems to ring a bell for me, or at least some fantasy stuff, right? I'm not thinking of the Purge. I think that would be a bit of an extreme example, but yeah. So you get to kind of have a bit of a debauched, kind of once a year type vibe. Is that the sort of thing? Debauched, is that the right word?
It could be. I
It
suppose.
depends.
Depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of unique interpretations. I don't know if we can talk about things we've done in the past, or if we even want to.
If
but,
you 100% can, like, it's more like just if you sometimes it's like awkward if you're playing game and then but to be fair, our listeners are actually really, really good. I can't think of one example where someone has said something on here and we've had negative effects on the field, so you're 100%.
I think we should say like what we did, which was the most fun thing we did during Broken Wheel.
Go on.
Sure.
You can't back out now. That's
So
Oops.
there was. Who wants to go? Who wants to say?
You go.
Okay.
Who is you? Ben, yes.
Okay.
And do the talking.
So there was one year where there's an entity in the system called lictors, and their whole deal is that if you break a contract, they'll come for you. Or if you break an oath, they'll come for you and they'll do horrible things to you in the night.
wow.
And
And they're real.
And
Are they real? Like, I say real in the game. Will they come and get
It's
you?
one of the magical realms. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
one of the Eternals /
Yeah.
Herald.
That's cool. Okay.
So anyway, their whole thing is they wear these messed up metal masks and they dress in all black robes, and they go around, they sing we decided to sing a creepy lictor song about coming to get you for breaking your oaths, and we decided to give out fake contracts. Now the thing is, we were trying to still look like Brasscoasters, or Freeborn. Now you got me doing it. We're still trying to look
Amazing.
like Freeborn. Damn it. We're still trying to look like Freeborn enough that people, couldn't. We weren't basically trying to impersonate like PD official heralds, right?
Yeah.
Like one of our members has like massive golden antlers that were sticking out, covered in jinglies and bells. So yeah, but we were walking around with fake contracts, and there was stuff like say duck or scream the word duck, or like a spanking needs to be administered. And we were going around in the evening dressed as these lictors, singing the creepy song, going up to groups and just sort of like quietly infiltrating them, handing out these contracts. And some people took it so seriously, especially the Navari.
Just
Like,
great.
There was a guy who was just there going, I will not scream out duck because I didn't sign this. All right, I'm gonna go. It's been fun, guys. We just walked off.
We did almost get murdered.
Yeah, several times.
Well, not in Navarre,
did.
surely.
Well, yes, once by Navarre.
Oh no,
One
it
time
must have
by
been someone
Navarre.
dressed up as a Navari. We're very peaceful folk who would never ever shank anyone in the
Indeed.
dark, so that doesn't sound correct at all.
I mean,
Murder rally
for
is just,
reference, we were all wearing. I mean, picture Death Eaters, right? With like a
Yes.
metal type mask, and then head to toe black robes, hood, and everything. Obviously,
But
was
still jingling.
still jingling, and you could see our entire Brasscoast kit through slits in the robes and around our feet, and sticking out when there was antlers and headdresses and things like that. So if you were paying attention, you
Yeah.
you could spot the fraud, but still pretty imposing, especially when there's 10 of us,
we
slowly
did-
creeping in.
Yeah, I can
We
imagine.
nearly got that Navari killed, actually.
Did we?
Yes, because we were saying, someone, I can't remember who, remembered one of the Navari friends' names. And we were going around going, have you seen blah, 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 because we wanted to, surprise her. But then the Navari very nearly executed her because the lictors were, looking for her. And that's why the lictors came to the camp in the first place.
Oh, so
And,
we should get rid of the person so the lictors don't come back
she's
anymore.
clearly an oathbreaker.
My God, that's so we're an impulsive
She
lot.
found it hilarious, thank God.
Yeah.
She didn't get killed. She was able to explain it was some broken wheel dumb fuckery. But,
That's
it was a
great.
great night. I scared a few of my friends shitless. They really thought they were going to die.
Okay,
It was
what's
hilarious.
good about that is it is one of the things that I start to really admire in some people's game is their ability to create game, right? Like some people go in there and there's a few people that I've been hanging out with recently that are they're just chaos incarnate, but not it looks that way from the surface, but that they're so meticulous in how they do it, right? Like it's not just that they're murder hoboing or being just antisocial or going against the game. They're completely playing the game and creating drama around them as they go, and it's so good. And you're making people's events by those. If you have a near miss because somebody did some crazy shit next to you, you're gonna tell people the story about that when you get home after the weekend,
Yeah.
Right. Shall we get back to some more Brasscoast questions? Because how do you arrange your houses, families? You call your groups families?
Yeah.
Oh, we are.
Okay, cool. And you literally are family.
All descended of the 3 sisters. Yep.
Yeah, there's
All
definitely a
one
thing in the Brasscoast you'll say, hey, cousin, or if you see another Freeborn out and about in the wild, you go, all right, cousin.
Right. Interesting. And how does the kind of structure of those groups work? What sort of archetypes do you have in those families? Is there a leader?
So the leader is called the Domero, which is usually the person that didn't step back quickly enough when a leader needs to be appointed. It is not an inherited position or there's no specific way that the leader is chosen. It's within the family. And then, yes, it's their responsibility, but also our families are like herding chickens. So.
And how does that work within... Oh, sorry, let's go through some archetypes, actually. Does anyone want to kind of list off what archetypes there are and how they interact in the game?
There is only one archetype. It's Corsair. That's not actually true.
I was going to say,
what?
What? Yeah.
Yeah, the only nation that has one archetype.
Wintermark's got a bunch. I looked at them and I was really jealous. They have a whole heap of them.
So in terms of the Brasscoast archetypes, so yeah, Corsair, and that is honestly one of the main archetypes you'll encounter because who doesn't want to be a Corsair?
Describe what a Corsair is for those that don't know.
Well, we're Freeborn traders and privateers who basically a good raid. We like to go out to the Bay of Katazar and kill the Grendel.
Yeah, who doesn't?
And any other enemies of the Empire that happen to be on the list. We're pirates, basically. Then you have the Hakima, and the Hakima are our sort of magic council, as it were. They're so they actually don't have loyalty. It's gonna sound wrong. They don't have loyalty to a family. When you become a Hakima, you leave your family because you put your loyalty towards your nation. So they become part of they're just the Freeborn. So they tend to lose their familial name.
And does that mean
them,
how do they organize then? Do they have groups within the nation that they kind of congregate around and work together with?
Yeah. Do you want to explain that, Cicci?
So basically, they are their own group, or multiple groups. You have Hakima groups as well as family groups, and you also have Kohan, which is another archetype, which is the fighter protector of the magical Hakima.
Oh,
And
cool.
they're also sort of separate from the families.
Interesting. Does that kind of work like, I assume, like covens? Similar vibes, so they can do magical things together in half magic? I'm talking about things I don't know much about, so...
Yeah, Hakima usually have their own covens. Brasscoast is quite a small nation, so I don't know how many Hakima covens they are, but yeah, they work together to support Brasscoast as a whole rather than the families.
Interesting.
And the Kohan protect the Hakima and the Brasscoast, so there are dedicated fighters.
Interesting. Cool. Any more?
Yeah, so just to go into the Kohan a little bit more, their whole deal is that they're essentially volunteer warriors, or sometimes they can be like outcasts for one reason or another, like they have to leave their family. But basically, if you swear to become a Kohan for whatever reason, again, like the Hakima, you lose your family. You are like out of that. You're ostracized essentially from that side of
And
society.
it's like a sacrifice, right? That's what it feels like. It's
Yeah.
a big deal to give up your
Exactly.
family, right?
Yeah, you're sacrificing for the nation as a whole, not just one family. And then I think the only other one really is the Scrivener, which we talked about earlier.
And you write stuff down.
And the Sutania. Do not forget the
shit!
Sutania.
Yeah, duh.
You're a Sutania now.
Yeah, I am. I'm glad. Here you go, Cicci. Why don't you talk about Sutanias?
What's a soutenier? Soutenier?
Sutania is the freeborn priest archetype. So they are somewhere between what would be traditionally a priest and a party planner, because any ceremony in the Brasscoast is a party. So a wedding, a funeral, a naming ceremony, they're all great celebrations.
It's so cool. Yeah, the so what virtues would you say, not that you wouldn't be virtuous in all the virtues, but which ones would you say are more prominent within the Brasscoast? Prosperity, I would assume.
Prosperity, definitely got a quite big congregation. But the pride is very, very well represented as well.
Ambition?
Loyalty.
Oh no, loyalty, yeah.
But what I think most of the virtues are definitely represented by our Sutanians.
Which is the correct answer. You have passed. You're not heretical, so that's good. Yeah, can you maybe talk a little bit about combat and how Brasscoast behaves on the battlefield, and maybe what armor you would wear? Because it's all very flowy stuff, isn't it? Like, you're not going to be wearing heavy plate and mail, I would assume.
That's where you're wrong. Okay.
Okay.
No, so historically, where apparently, like, I wasn't there for the very first events, but from what I've been told, the Brasscoast kind of got a bit of a bum rap because they turned up to battle wearing like no armor and wearing all the flowy clothing and having like 2 hit points and dying extremely quickly.
Yeah.
Is what I've been told from the history, which is but since then people have cottoned on that. Actually, of course, people, in the sort of time periods we're talking about, had to wear armor. So you'll see a lot of like mirror armor, which is, it's like circular plates, or it can be square, but circular square plates.
Oh, Lamlar, Lemire? How did you say it?
No, that's more of a Rushkin.
Okay.
No. It literally, imagine like a leather jerkin.
Yep.
And then put like a metal dish in the center and maybe one on the back.
Oh, there's one guy. He has like red hair or something, and he just looks insanely good. I think he wears one of those.
Oh, You're probably talking about Johnny.
He has like a hat with something poking out the top of it. This is like 2-year-old memory, by the way. So I'm probably describing like a completely different from what he's actually
No.
wearing.
I think I know exactly the player you're describing, and yeah, he is a great example of like what you can wear. And luckily, he's all over the Wikipedia and in lots of shots because he always looks great.
Yeah.
So he's a Kohan. He takes Kohan very seriously. He's like reviving the Kohan tradition. So you'll often see him and the other Kohan wearing fierce war paints.
Yes.
Depending on their moods.
He looks incredible, right? Like he looks like like if there's a breach to be like gone into aggressively, he's your man basically. It's
Yeah, I'll quickly talk about tactics then, because that's what we're kind of verging on there. In the way the Brasscoast should be used. So again, the nation's pretty small. I think when I was in charge, the most we often fielded at one point was either 45 or 50, which sounds like a lot, but in the grand schemes of things, when you have like Wintermark who can field like 300 odd fighters or something ridiculous, like it's not.
yeah.
So how the Brasscoast should be used is kind of similar, funnily enough, to how Dawn should be used, which is we're flankers. We are a pretty heavy unit now because, again, people realize they need to wear like chainmail and they need to wear plate and blah, blah, blah. And what we tend to do is like charge in on the flank and hit really hard and then run off. Or we hit really hard and hit them so hard that they break and then we run them down. But we're just a completely mobile unit and we will run and we will charge and we will do our stuff. Where it goes wrong is when field marshals and generals try and make us work as like a marcher unit or a high guard unit and like go and hold a line for 2 hours. And you're like, well, we're all dead.
Yeah.
Because like we can't hold that long. We are not built.
You literally the conversation that the words you just said that could be so Navarre. Like we've had to like heavy armor up. There's a lot more heavy armor guys. A lot more like we have shields, which are part of our brief, which is helpful, but they're quite specifically shaped. So that's kind of being brought into the nation more and more. But what sort of weapons do Brasscoast fight with?
So a misconception I think some people have initially with Brasscoast is that we use scimitars, and because they see the visuals and they go, oh, okay, well they must be using curved swords. That's actually specifically against the brief.
Interesting.
The main weapon of choice, theoretically, for Corsairs anyway, should actually be an axe or some kind of hatchet because it's like a ship fighting weapon. But then it's pretty standard stuff. It's swords, it's large round shields. And what I'm always trying to get more and more of, because they're the best weapon, is like glaives and spears, stabby, slashy weapons.
Yeah, it turns out size does actually matter, like a whole bunch, like a lot. So
it's the best. Like we had it at one point was we had a couple of families who all took sword and axe and shield, so they could form a nice, good shield wall. And then I had a bunch of like skirmishers who had like dual wield or like polearm, and I could get them to go around the flank with me, and we'd do mini flanking maneuvers, and that's really effective. But yeah, so that's the kind of weapons that suit the Brasscoast ideally. It's a bit of a mix mash. There's no specific you must use this. I guess what we wouldn't use is something like a tower shield, something that's if it screams another nation, like a tower shield, like High Guard or whatever, like we wouldn't do that. The shields do tend to be circular and keep more fitting.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. There's something kind of interesting about how PD seems to have deliberately taken what might seem on the surface as quite generic archetypes of some cultural group. But when you actually go through the brief, they tend to mix and match an awful lot. So they might have one specific look, but their language might be very different, and then culture might be very different on top of that. So it's very much worthwhile not making any assumptions about I'm talking about barbarian as well as like imperial nations here. Like there's loads of that in the game, so it's something to very much bear in mind when you're interacting with anyone. So
which I think is great because it means that it's its own world, and that's one of the great things about Empire. You get on the field and it doesn't feel like you're in a reenactment of a bunch of different time periods or nations. It feels like its own thing.
Oh, very much
which
so.
Is lovely.
And I think the kind of like one thing that especially in this day and age, right, we have to be aware of different cultures and some of the effect that we might have and some of the privileges that we have. Like I know some of you are listening to this and going, ugh, but we're not going to go into it completely now, but it is part of the world that we live in now. And I think I think the whole of LARP, to be honest, is on a delicate line, and I think it's very easy to go the wrong side of that. But I think PD generally get it pretty right, and I think the players kind of respect that as well. So,
And when they get it wrong, they're not afraid to come around and fix it, which
yeah,
is really important.
yeah. I mean,
Because things change all the time.
I would say,
nothing.
let me put like over the last 5 to 6 years. I mean, my politics and a whole bunch of stuff has changed and molded with experience and education. You know, so we're all doing it. We're all at our own pace, but also at the same time, we shouldn't be too harsh on those that are maybe not staying up to our own moral standards, however high they are. You know what I mean? Like, so I think PD do a fair job in that as well by protecting everyone if they're making a mistake or not, right? Like,
I think there's a thing around intent, right? Like if you if you turn up and maybe you look or you do something that's kind of offensive, if you just don't realize it's offensive, then like fair enough. Like someone, but then the intent after that, if someone calls you up and says, "Hey, by the way, you might want to not do that or look like that or whatever because of X, Y, and Z," and then you go, "Fuck you, I'll do it anyway. I want to, whatever, blah blah blah." Screw however it might make someone else feel. Then I think you're a bit of an ass.
Yeah, I think it comes
if,
down
on the
to.
other hand, you take that and go, "Oh shit, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to look into why I actually should listen to that feedback and take it on board potentially." Like then that's a different thing.
A lot of this comes down to like first rule, like don't be an asshole. Basically, like it's really straightforward. A lot of people, if they do have really offensive views, are knowing they're being an asshole. So intent's really important, but also on the flip side of that, you don't want to be this kind of like inquisitor of moral justice on the field where you're going around and like damning everyone to eternity because of honest mistakes, right? So there's a balancing line here that we're all trying to figure out. But let's get, because we could
Don't be a dick unless you're in one of our plays. In which case, definitely.
And then bring more dicks, and then dicks on top of dicks. Dickception. Yeah, Jesus.
That's the title of our next play.
Dickception, cockception. I don't know. I'm really thinking about joining the Brasscoast next character, by the way. Like, and I love Navarre, and I'm not done with Navarre for a long way right now. Obviously, like I have a lot to do. It's could be years away, but my retirement dream in my head, like is to be sitting in the Brasscoast earning 5%, having a wonderful time. Like that's the retirement dream.
I mean, that is not a bad dream, and if we still have any land left by the time you get there, it'd be lovely.
Don't. It's awful. Like like the Brasscoast really. For those that are listening, the Brasscoast at the time of recording, obviously we're in the longest arc right now for reference, but you lost a lot of ground recently, and the Grendel had a wonderful time taking over forts you'd just finished building and a bunch of terrible things, right?
It is bad. Real bad. We are terribly upset about this.
Yeah,
it's the weird thing with like the longest arc as well, because obviously it happened just before the longest arc, so we're going back pretending like 2 years hasn't really gone by. It's this thing of like Feroz has been gone. Suddenly, I've grown really long hair and a beard. That's how stressy the loss of Feroz was.
Yeah, I've been trying to come up with like stories of where I've been and what I've been doing, and I'm like smashing out some player events right now, and I'm like, wow, my character Gellert is getting around a lot in the very small amount of time that he's had. Like, he's doing
a couple of months.
I can't stop. I gotta go to Farunin. Do you know what I mean? And then I'm off. Like, yeah. Because how much is in real time? Is it 3 months between events or something?
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing some work. I managed to sail all the way to Jarm and back again. Then I went to where was it? Hakinia. And then another place in Hakinia, and now I'm off to Farunin. So yeah, but I had a busy 3 months. So, but yeah, hopefully things.
An evening and all.
What's that?
Literally just spending an evening in every place.
Yeah, exactly.
Party time!
To be fair, that's
Right,
very Gellert. I think that that's just fine. Yeah. Is there any kind of like if you were the the tourist board for the Brasscoast, and it was like if you wanted to give like a seasonal must not miss, and you have to check this out while you're visiting, like what are the sort of things? Obviously, the festival on the E4 sounds like a pretty good time to go and enjoy some Freeborn gone wild would be kind of
So
Always wild.
yeah
Yeah, people tend to either love or hate the Freeborn Broken Wheel Festival. So if you hate it, don't judge us by that, because all of the rest of the year we're entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best thing is actually with the Broken Wheel, if you're hearing this and going, oh, that sounds great. So it's on the Saturday evening of the E4. Come when it is like sundown, because that's when you'll actually see it kick off. Because what does tend to happen, and like there have been efforts made by the nation to try and keep it more contained, but it kicks off by us like chasing out paragons, and like who are these giant puppets out of our camp. And then like everyone's like shtick that they're going to do that night is kind of revealed, but then they disperse to go and do that throughout the Empire. So actually, you don't see much come nighttime, like in the Brasscoast, because we're all over the bloody place. So if you want to see it really like actually take effect, you come at sundown.
I love that. There's a mischievousness to Freeborn that we haven't mentioned yet, but that's kind of my vibe when I interact with people. It's often very playful. It's often kind of like very direct and honest, and witty is kind of like the impression I get of, and a whole bunch of Brasscoast is wit is like something else. And they appreciate wit too, right? Like if you're displaying wit or candor or business savvy, then kind of people appreciate that around you. It's yeah, I really enjoy my time that I get to hang out with people from the Brasscoast. Greta, is there anything that...
I think the other thing, if you're talking about... Sorry, I was just saying, just because we always talk about the Broken Wheel, the other things I was going to say is like tea houses. They're a big thing in the Brasscoast culture. Like every other tent is the tea house. So that's like the main thing, I think, if you're going to come to the Brasscoast to experience, go and have some tea.
And what?
Because it's great.
So literally, it is exactly what it sounds like. You go there, hi there, I would like some tea, please. And then you are given tea.
Pay them.
Yeah, there's a you get treated like a prince when you're in the Brasscoast. Like you pay for it, but it is like there is no like ambiguity. Like whenever I've been there, it literally like I decided to pay for the deluxe package, which involved a lot of drinks, deliberately. And I was wrecked. Like, this is middle of the afternoon, and I just was gunning these drinks down the entire time. And I was like, I was so drunk so early on that Saturday that it wasn't good. But that's the kind of vibe. Like, people will serve you drinks. People will be very generous. Like, if you've made an agreement for hospitality, then it's kind of like everything goes, right? Like, you're there to have a good time and really well looked after. It's great.
Even if you're dying.
Even if you're dying.
Especially if you're dying.
Especially if you're dying.
Except for that one guy who didn't pay for the bench.
That's true.
Fuck him.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What?
So someone came to our camp and died on our bench without paying for it.
Oh, I'm with you. Well, that was... Hold on. Let's all calm down now, okay? Like, I'm sure Irfan is making his way through the labyrinth right now, ready to give that coin back to you guys. So, you know...
It wasn't even you.
No, it wasn't you.
We were very
did
happy
pay.
with your death.
Oh, someone else died on your benches?
Yes.
Oh, so 2 people have died to the Coctopus.
Was I first at least?
I think you were the first.
Okay, that's fine. As long as I'm not stealing someone else's limelight. Oh my God, that would be awful.
I think someone may have been inspired by your death.
Hey, that's fantastic.
Like, that's how I want to go out.
I highly recommend it for everyone out there. Like,
face full on in the Coctopus's fine booty.
Yeah.
That's my perfect end.
It's the way I want to go.
Happy ending.
I mean, Jesus. Yeah, like I said, still have flashbacks to this day. Yeah, I think the I can't wait to actually join the Brasscoast, but I can because I love Navarre so much. But like I said, it's definitely in the bank of kind of like happy places I go to when I fantasize about LARP characters and what they're gonna be. Like, yeah. Is there
I think it's a pretty good place for new people to come as well. For a few things specifically, like the idea that you can go up to any fire and offer a coin to sit down and join in whatever they're doing. That's really nice when you're brand new to a field and you don't really know anyone. But you know, you can come to the Brasscoast, you can walk up to any fire and say, "Can I sit down? Here's a coin." it's a really good way to start up a conversation.
Mhm. I like that. I need to do.
Or to get adopted into a family if you don't have one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
Absolutely.
like 80% now of our current family members were new players who just happened upon our fire. We're like, we're new to the anvil. Here's a coin. You're like, oh, come sit down. We'll look after you. And then they just sort of never leave.
I think it's funny that even on the brief, you talk about family, but that's a huge vibe. Like, it's one of the things that like I really struggle to, or at least I think I struggle to kind of represent when we're talking about Empire and going at Anvil and what it's like to really walk around. Like, places change from day to night, like, but each camp feels very distinct when you start interacting with it.
Yeah.
I was trying to go
Yeah.
for a Senate position, so I was trying to track down a few different senators. I know it's a senator, but everybody knew who I was talking about. Everyone was like, talking about it. In fact, one of the senators I went to talk to literally told me, I'm so sorry, I can't take a bribe because I might be out of the seat by tomorrow when the election's happening. That's a really good anecdote, actually, for Brasscoast, because he could have taken the coin knowing that he could have been voted out, but he wouldn't take the coin because there was a chance he couldn't fulfill his duty to the contract. And that is like...
Yeah.
Once you understand that about the Brasscoast, then you'll always be able to navigate your way through the and understand where everyone's at, which I just can't wait to interact with more people, more Freeborn.
Actually, that's a really good analogy there as well, because as we said earlier, everything has a price. So like bribes in the Brasscoast are 100% totally fine to do.
Have we got this far without mentioning the word bribe yet? Because bribe
we have.
is should have been in the first 5 minutes, and I apologize, dear listener. Please talk about bribes in great detail.
I think, Cicci, you've got more experience with them. Like, I've offered to pay for positions, but I don't bother too much with the family bribes and stuff.
I mean, it's not bribes, it's just a contract, right? I pay you
yeah.
for something and you will do your best to provide it. And contracts are very important in Brasscoast. But there is no shame in offering money to have your senator vote as you want them to. And all of the Senate positions are bought. Basically, there is an auction for all of the Senate position, and whichever family puts in the most money gets that position.
Do you
And that is
ever
very upfront.
cross over to families? Do families work together to elect one of the? You know what I mean? Does that happen?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
All the time.
Literally, like every season when there's an election, you'll have a bunch of families like coming up to you. You're like, okay, so you're going to put money forward for this person, right? Like, we're going to do this because like that'll be in everyone's best interest. And you're like, sure, how much money are you giving me to do that? Oh, I'm sorry, the other family outbid you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite weird to see because the political game at Empire is deep and full of PvP political stuff, and it's so refreshing just to deal with some brass tacks who are like, no, this is exactly what's happening, this is how much it costs. Like, none of that kind of like behind closed doors type vibe to it. It's just completely open, completely straight up. Like, it's really nice. In fact, I'm kind of curious about how with the Emperor, the throne being empty, and how Brasscoast might feature in that. It's a good time to be in the Brasscoast because there's gonna be an awful lot of money changing hands over the next year, I would assume.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, my character is going to be putting herself forward because she has an ambition for her name to be known across the Empire. So I think being Empress would definitely help with that.
I think it would help, yeah. I mean, like, you might need to work on some marketing, but yeah, I reckon that would probably do it, yeah.
Octopus everywhere.
We did it, yeah, the dream.
What's the dream?
Want to explain that? Cicci?
Let's maybe not go into that.
Okay, cool. All right. Just the look they gave each other just then is probably best that we don't talk about it on the podcast, whatever that might be anyway. So, geez. Yeah, I think it's going to be what are we missing anything of Brasscoast? I don't want to leave anything on the table. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to go into?
We have really good food.
The music is great as well, actually. I didn't answer your first question, which is why we joined the nation, and the music brief was a big part of it. Ironically, we don't stick rigidly to the original brief, but it's always fun.
What sort of music traditions are within the nation? Like, what would you expect to see and find?
It varies heavily. You get a lot of sea shanties. I think original brief inspiration was sort of 13th century Spanish music, and there's some Balkan music as well. Maybe, or is it Greek? I don't remember all of the brief influences. You get less of that because it's musically quite complex and difficult to do when you're drunk.
Yeah.
It's, the
That's a
main thing is that
beautiful
it's
afternoon concerts, and then late night. Yeah.
late night. It's just all the rude songs, which is it's pretty common in all the nations. But it's that joyousness, I think, that permeates the entire nation brief that is also really present in the music. And it's
Yeah,
also good for new people to join in and have a good time.
Yeah, I think that's another word that should have been used earlier. Joyfulness or joy is the kind of like it's such a kind of fun nation to interact with the people. Like I just have such a good time. Like really, it's especially like a friend of mine. I won't mention her name, but like it's just an absolute pleasure being around them because they're quick-witted, they're funny, they're kind of like they're fun with a playful jab or whatever. Like everything's on the table, nothing's really taboo. It's like we just enjoy each other's company very much. So yeah, it's one of the nations that I'd really like to have much deeper ties with going forward. I think the Brasscoast, but like I said, it's expensive being friends with you guys. Like honestly, it's.
I think it's one of the things that makes it really appealing, especially for new players, is the fact that like yes, 100%. There's a lot of serious roleplay that happens in the Brasscoast, but you don't necessarily have to be a serious roleplayer to be part of the coast. If that makes sense, like you can just have a right laugh because the whole thing about their brief is that joy, life is fleeting. They generally prefer to like. The thing about Freeborn is they tend to feel their emotions extremely acutely. So they really get involved and enveloped with the whole like, let's have a good time right now. But if you piss one off, they'll get really angry at you very suddenly. But once they've vented that, they'll then switch back to, okay, now we're cool. Let's carry on and be dancing and happy. So yeah, whereas some of the other nations might be a little bit more solemn. Or just generally more serious or low demeanor, at everything. Whereas the Brasscoast generally, as I say, because it appeals to a certain type of person, like you're a little bit silly.
Although the only problem that the Brasscoast really has is attracting bugs, because you guys are like walking around like flowers, and those poor little bugs can't tell the difference. So like. One of the player events, I kept wandering around being like, oh, there's no bugs here. And every time I sat with this one person, I'd be like, why are there so many bugs here? And it took me a minute to figure out why. And it was like, well, you're going to attract every like bug that likes those bright colors, which is a problem. So, yeah. Cool. Well, I think we can kind of wrap up there, I think. It's been like so educational. I've been waiting to talk to you guys for so long. And I just want to say thank you so much. Like, that whole thing with my death is possibly the best thing that's ever happened to me at Empire. Now, it is 100%. That whole series of events of my death was just so outlandish and like everything that we want from living in a fantasy world, like we don't want to, like I've said it before and I'll say it again, like I don't want to live I don't want to live timidly or miss out in my normal life. I certainly don't want to do that in my fantasy life, right? And I think that beautiful cherry on top of my death of dying to the coctopus is just so unbelievably awesome. Like it's more than I could possibly have ever hoped for in my wildest dreams when I was approaching the hobby, so thank you so much, basically. I don't know, I'm waffling on now, but it really meant a lot to me.
We were super chuffed that you wanted to do that. We were all like completely chuffed. It's like, oh my God, his dying wish is to, be with us and do this thing. That's amazing. That's that really made our event as well.
Yeah,
I think our other groupies need to step up to that level of dedication.
These all come
to aspire to.
It's a new service we'll provide.
We do funerals.
The death play, yeah, we do funerals.
Oh, this one's still alive.
We
All
do
right,
do funerals.
sit him down.
No, we do
do
funerals, but
funerals.
I guess this is more like funerals that take place, like literally the person dies during the performance.
I think it was like, for me, what was really fun was because Ifan was quite a serious character, or could be. It was quite fun to kind of like just completely offset that with the love of the absurd and the wacky and the fun and the joyful. Was just such a lovely counteraction to like the seriousness of the character. So I think it worked really well. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. A little bit of death does people a whole bunch of good. So if you're listening to this and are like, oh, I don't want to die, like seriously, give it a try. It's pretty awesome. I highly recommend it. People will tell stories about you if you've done it right, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I've not died yet. I'm trying. Damn
Wow.
it.
You just gotta be obnoxiously rolling the dice every single time with your
I
personal
did nearly
safety.
get killed in Navarre.
Killed by
I
Navarre.
did nearly. Yeah, well, by the egregore, yeah. We were performing, I think it was the Octopus, and I was this time instead of narrating wearing it. And this is an example of like the in-game cultural clashes that can happen, and it's like one of my favorite things about the system. And so like after the play, we will do a tip for a tip, where we go up to you, go tip for a tip, give us a ring, and we'll shove the Octopus in your face, because some people fucking love that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Navarre-
So I'm just saying,
No.
like, that's fine if you're into that sort of thing. No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be up for that, but like other people, I'm sure they'll be. Well,
You
up
put
for
your
that.
whole face in its booty.
Yeah, it's a fucking.
You
Incredible.
can't see shit.
It's incredible. You've never lived
But-
unless you've tried that.
But I didn't realize in Navarre story time you can't ask for money. Like the whole thing is, it's like their sacred thing of like you're there and you're there to tell a story and then you leave or sit down, whatever. So I'm going around going tip for a tip, tip for a tip. Seen some Brasscoasters who are giving me tips because they also don't know. Oh, you got me doing it again, you bastard. Freeborn, who's in, they don't know they're meant to do this as well. And I was like, man, the Navarre cheap bastards. I know they're poor, but come on, like where's all the money? And then like,
Oh yeah.
I didn't say that.
No, but like.
But me just doing this, like seeing the Navarre look at me in horror, and then like Cicci and Greta and the other troopers were like, "Get over here!" I'm like, oh, and I look around, they're all like daggers slowly coming out. I'm like, oh shit, I fucked up somehow, haven't I? So I did this like silly walk and whatever, and then I found out later because the egregore in Navarre, one of them is my friend, and he said later on like, you were so close to getting venomed. I was like. Literally another player saved your life. I was like, sweet, what a way to go out though.
It's so interesting.
Massively offensive.
We haven't done the Navarre episode yet for the nations, and we're putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because it's like there's some circles that need squaring before we even talk about Navarre, and I don't know who we're gonna get on as a guest to do it. I don't know how we're gonna approach it because like Brasscoast, I think, are misunderstood with their honesty. Like, I think that's the one big thing that players don't understand about the Brasscoast is how honest the players are within that, apart from this one day, obviously, so don't get caught out, but generally how very honest they are. And I think they get that misunderstood. Unfortunately, when you hear stories like that, like, you can kind of think that, like, Navarre are a bunch of murder monkeys, and they're kind of not. It's complicated. I think like that's one that we'll try and cross when we talk about
it would have been the same if like a Navarre had come around and started breaking a bunch of contracts, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a cultural misunderstanding on my part where I caused huge amounts of offense and
it's
then
like going
was able
around
to run away,
like slapping shoulders and shaking hands in Eurozen, like
hugging all the Eurozen,
hugging the Eurozen, right? So now it's like I recently had another Eurozen shake my hand, and it was like, yeah, but it was like, that's heavy, right? Like that's a really big cultural deal, and it's like that sort of thing. Are like that when you understand the law and those things happen, you're like, wow, that's cool. Like that's really cool. Like you're surrendering a little bit of your culture to show respect to another culture is like a nice thing. I don't know how that would work with the Brasscoast, actually. That'd be interesting.
Get Liga to stop lying. I'm gonna get murdered next time.
I mean, good luck. Good luck.
That was the plan, right?
That was fun.
You did say you were trying to die.
Well, I mean,
I'll do the Iron Duke. It's all gonna be good.
it's gonna be some. If you're gonna die, get some money out of it. Like, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out some sort of way that you could get paid for
I've
doing
got some
something.
plans.
We're
I've got
not
some
doing
plans.
snuff plays. We're definitely not doing snuff plays. That's just not gonna happen. Sorry, putting my foot down.
I don't. Did anyone mention
It'd
that?
be
I don't know. Did
pretty
anyone
lucrative.
mention it? I don't know whether anyone actually mentioned that or not. But
Yeah, I hadn't considered it until you said that. Now I'm like,
Same, yeah. I mean, I can provide the poisons, I suppose.
I was gonna say, yeah. You've got a very good accomplished poisoner. I mean, healer.
A healer, yeah. I only learned those to get the antidotes.
Greta,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
always
Yeah.
liked you. By
Need
the
to
way,
understand your
like
craft.
you're such a wonderful person. It's just like you're so cool, just so cool, you know. So, and I
It's
would.
great having our herbalist also be our main cook. There's, she understands all those spices and herbs wonderfully.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I didn't know much about poisons until I did the hospital episode, and then to find out that the people that are all responsible for healing are also the people that have the most access to some of the most vicious, nasty things within the game. Like, yeah, I still find the idea of trying to assassinate someone with poison one of the most like Ocean's 11 type things you can do, because you have to like make it and then get it in them within 10 minutes or whatever. So there's a kind of like, like,
and you have to have a stealth ref kind of sat somewhere.
yeah, and it's one of
watching
those.
and
I
it'll
just
go down.
I just picture it as being like the face pull reveal, and then the music, bum 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 bum. Like that's how I view like an assassination like that.
There is a story I know of a guy who got assassinated. He was poisoned coming off the battlefield somehow, can't remember how, and it was a really nasty poison. But they actually managed to cure him, and he had to roleplay being really fucked up. So he was like, "Oh, great, I get to have a nap." So he went and had a nap. But then his murderer, his wannabe murderer, who was like, "Bollocks!" Like, didn't poison him, just had to go into the tent and shank him up. Like, I wanted to do this in such a more elegant way, but you got cured, and now you just get stabbed.
Yeah, I always say like. One day, if they ever come for my character, I just hope it's for the right reason, right? Like, I just hope it's because, like, that's the only choice I've given my political or social rivals, right? Like, that's the only option I've given them. Like, I hate the idea of, like, some idiot trying to mug me because I'm always poor. Like, it just isn't worth trying to murder me. It really isn't.
No one's gonna mug Navari, don't worry.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah, I do camp on Murder
To be
Alley.
fair,
So.
Empire is really good for that. There is very little incentive for anyone to do random.
Yeah.
It is all about, if you are going to be assassinated, you have to have worked really bloody hard at getting that cool that you're that disliked.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
to be
really
fair, the guy who got murdered 100% was a terrible person. So, like, it
In
wasn't
character,
a random.
obviously.
Yeah, in character, lovely person in real life. But yeah, he was a bad person.
Sometimes
in
murder's
character, and, like,
completely
came back.
justified, right? Like 100%.
Well, no, what I want to avoid is like making potential new players who are listening to this go, "Oh shit, I don't want to die." Like, it doesn't happen.
No.
You have to work for it.
Yeah, and it's kind of
Just like Anna's husband. So just a quick, very freeborn anecdote. Anna's husband angered my character. And so I went around and talked to all the family and came to the conclusion that he must be poisoned to be taught a lesson, because he wasn't showing any remorse and he just needed to learn that this was wrong. So
Greta, do you deliberately make your eyes burn with fire like that, or is that just a byproduct of what you were saying? Like, because that was terrifying. Jesus.
did I miss something?
No, just the way you said it was like, I've had a few people on that have been like talked about murder in the most casual way possible. It's deeply troubling.
Oh, well, he wasn't murdered.
No, I didn't kill him.
Oh, you just you were like,
I just poisoned him. I had the antidote as well.
Yeah, literally. We're like, he was a bit drunk, and we kept going back around the fire, gave him a drink, and then you were like, right, do you want the antidote now? It was beautiful, and he was like icy, so not like actually, but he was like puking his guts up. His guts were on fire because you gave him.
I gave him gut
essentially-
worm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So don't piss off healers or any herbalists because they will poison you.
in fact,
I did make sure that he impregnated his wife first,
Yes, of course.
because that was her stipulation for her to agree.
In case he died, she wanted something
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah. So we did a fertility ritual first, and then the poisoning happened.
you have fertility.
The ref was
rituals?
really baffled because I wasn't doing this secretive like you were. explaining earlier at all.
Yeah.
He just walked right up and did it all, and she was like, "Wait, this is illegal. What are you doing? Why is everybody okay with this?"
We've said it's fine. It's our own family.
He deserved it. Everybody
Yeah.
agreed.
He's not gonna die
It's hilarious.
unless he
Well, as
talks
well.
shit, and then he will die. Yeah. What a lovely anecdote of like real wholesome.
Yeah.
Look, you don't like become part of a family whose main group is called the Promiscuous Dodos without expecting us to be a little fucked up.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I like the idea of you just meeting up and being like, what if we got more cooks into this story this way? And they were like, everyone's like, wow, this guy's a great writer. Like he managed to fit at least 40 more dicks into this story. No one could even think of it. Like we always thought that there was like 100 dick like maximum, but he blew that out of the water. There's just dicks for days.
No one saw those dildodos coming.
Yeah.
In every way
God,
possible.
can you imagine listening to this and like there might be someone at a train station or something like that, and all they're doing is they're smiling and trying to look normal, and all they've got is like dick, cock, dick, penis, cock, dick, penis.
It's all I want. It's all I want out of life. I mean, literally, our banner is 2 dodos fucking, and I was like, if I can just
Leapfrogging, potentially.
leapfrogging potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I can just get one kid, one parent to have like that awkward conversation, then I've succeeded. And literally one day I was sat around the fire drinking a beer, and I just heard, "Mummy, what are those chickens doing?" And then a very I was like, "Yes,
When
it happened."
when a mama
When a mama dodo, daddy
I was about to say dildo, and I think this conversation's completely gone to my head, and yeah.
Success.
I'm gonna have to go and sit in like a cold bath for a little while
I
after
just
this.
like to say we do try to be respectful of the people, and we do warn everyone around the fire before the plays come out.
I would also say there's a
Yeah.
difference between like Smart Empire seems to be like in this kind of like it's fun rather than pervy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there's
I mean,
mostly
we
right?
are meant.
Yeah.
We're definitely aiming for the the very earthy sort of ridiculous sort of thing. It is not meant to be sexy.
No.
Yeah,
I
It
would
is meant
not
to be.
as attractive as all of you are, I would not describe the Cocktails play as a sexy play. It was a more
we
transcendent, I would describe it as, but
We also are very careful to avoid any actual like harmful themes. Like everything we do is very, innocent, as innocent as it can be, because we just want to have fun and we want other people to have fun.
well, it's very much like a kind of a teenager sense of humor and stuff as well, right? Like it's kind of like I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of pressing the point too hard here, but it's like, it's a good time. I highly
It's
recommend
from
it.
people in the field humor.
Yeah. So next time that you're at Empire and you want to go and get some live smut in your life and some education on the virtues, then definitely head to. So one last time, what's the name of your family if they want to come find you in the field?
House to Zeal.
House to Zeal.
Zeal.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, there are technically 2 families of the same group because our Demiro is married, so we kind of like hyphened them. So it's like my side of the family is called Reloba.
Why?
But we ignore that, and the important name is Tazil.
Why can't you
Yeah,
just
Tazil's
make
what
things simple? It's like, I know that there is like
That's-
simplicity to what you do, but it just seems so overly complicated all the time. Whenever I have, this is not, but that's a really good, another thing. That's completely like, that's very Brasscoast, is to be like, oh yeah, we have this, but there's a really random specific thing that's happening with this, which I need to explain to you. Is like, yeah, like double hyphening your names because your leader is married and therefore you're part of the same family, but not really. Oof, bonkers. Cool. Right. We usually wrap things up with a call and response. So the obvious one would be like Wintermark, Free People, One Nation, or Navarre, Strength to the Empire, Strength to Navarre. But I don't think the Brasscoast has anything quite like that. You're much too classy to have such a basic fuggish like chant.
Yeah, we have a lot of songs, but
Yeah, we
I don't
mostly
think
sing
we
them.
have a chant.
Do you
I
sing?
think the
Do you sing?
Firebird is probably.
Sorry, go on. I'm interrupting you, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the one that's coming to my head is the Firebird. It's the one we because
That
it's
is
basically
that is a good song, but it's not really the Brasscoast song.
no,
I mean,
but it's the one that we sing in
the
battle and
Christmas
stuff.
Dream is the one,
Hmm.
but that's not really a quick and final sort of chanty thing, is it?
No, yeah, it's
No.
not a chant.
Oh. Well, we'll just have to give up on that then, I guess.
We can do something. Okay. I don't know how good singing sounds over Discord, but we can definitely do like I don't
I'll tell you
know.
what, if it doesn't sound good, then this episode will end right now. Please go ahead, Siri.
Good. All right. Come freeborn and join in our song. Come freeborn and join in our song. Come freeborn and join in the song. Come freeborn and join in the song. The journey, the journey, the journey is long. 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 Sit by the fire and join in the song. Sit by the fire and join in the song. Sit by a fire and join in the song. Sit by a fire and join in the song. The journey, the journey, the journey is long. The journey, the journey, the journey is long. The journey, the journey, the journey is long. The journey, the journey, the journey is long.
Well, I think that sounded pretty fucking good. Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks for that. That's really nice.
Nonsense.
Father, please, maybe we should listen to them. They're trying to help us.
No one does anything for free, Ada. As soon as we're outside, they'll rob us and then turn us over to the mob. They're just common thieves.
Rob you? We aren't just common thieves, you know. Yarp! We're quite exceptional ones, I assure you.
Father, I want to go with them.
The hell you will, Ada. What's that smell?
Smoke?